That wasn't the case for me though. Mine just kept on going. Hi guys. So today, this is my first sit down video. I wanted to talk to you about something that I feel like I've struggled with constantly for the past about 2 years, and that's gestational diabetes. I have been diagnosed with gestational diabetes twice now. The first time was with my 2-year-old daughter during that pregnancy, and the second with my just turned 2-month-old baby girl. Just to explain a little bit about what gestational diabetes is, and to put a disclaimer out there, I'm not a medical professional or a doctor. This is all just based on my personal experiences and, you know, what the process of getting diagnosed was like for me, and the things that I had to do to cope with and manage my gestational diabetes. To start with, just like kind of layman's terms definition, gestational diabetes occurs as a result of the hormones that are in your body from pregnancy, and those hormones kind of cause your body to become what's called insulin resistant, which just means the amount of insulin that your pancreas is making and that is in your body doesn't do what it used to do. Things that you could eat before and your body handled fine, like a bag of Skittles or bread, pasta, milk, that your body used to process so easily before. Now if you eat those things, it may like shoot your blood glucose levels up really high, which causes what they refer to as a spike in your blood sugar, and hyperglycemia, which just means elevated blood sugar. Your blood sugar is too high. What insulin does is it helps your body tell your body like, hey, we've got all this sugar in our blood, now move it out to all the cells in the body so that you can use it and it can be changed into energy. So when you're insulin resistant, it's like your body's not listening to the insulin that's there, and so it's keeping all of that sugar in your blood, and it's causing those levels to stay elevated, which is really unhealthy and can pose a lot of risks for you and your baby. Also, the other thing that happens in gestational diabetes is sometimes your body slows down the actually amount of insulin that it makes, and if you have that insulin resistance, your body would actually need to be like really ramping up and making more and more and more insulin to kind of combat that insulin resistance. So in my case, when I had gestational diabetes, I kind of, you know, had that combo of both, like insulin resistance plus, you know, my body could not keep up and make enough, and that progressively got worse throughout the pregnancy, as is generally the case with gestational diabetes. For some people, when you get into your final trimester and the last weeks leading up to your pregnancy, your placenta starts kind of preparing to kind of close shop, because it's an organ that's, you know, in your body temporarily, and it's not meant to do a long-term job. So it starts wrapping things up, you know, like somebody going out on vacation or retiring. It's like, all right, job done, like let's wind it up. And so sometimes if you're taking insulin or other medications for your gestational diabetes at that time, you'll notice that your blood sugar is lower and lower, and sometimes the doctors adjust those. That wasn't the case for me though. Mine just kept on going. Importantly, in my situation, I unfortunately have a family history of type 2 diabetes. My mom currently is a type 2 diabetic. Her mother was a type 2 diabetic. Both of them were diagnosed probably in their 50s, late 50s. Not so sure for my grandmother. I think it might have been early, but that was so long ago. You know, they've really made a lot of advances in medicines and treatments for type 2 diabetes since that time. So my mom has definitely been able to manage hers well, but with that family history there, even though I went into my first pregnancy, I was not as heavy as I am now. I was approximately 140 pounds when I went into my last pregnancy with my 2-year-old. And so the doctors were really surprised when they decided to screen me early, because of my family history. I failed that first screening test, which is an oral glucose challenge, where you drink this solution there's varying amounts of glucose in the solution depending on which screening that they're doing for you. But you drink that, and then they test your blood sugar in different increments following depending on which one. So for the screening, you drink it, and then an hour later they check your blood sugar levels, and you don't have to fast for that one. You can kind of just go in any time of the day and take that test. And I did fail that one. Now I only failed it by a couple points, but they still made me come in and do the 2-hour oral glucose challenge. And that one, 3-hour, that one they actually give you 100 milliliters of glucose, milligrams I guess. So they made me come in to do the 3-hour test, and the nurses and everything were like, certainly you're gonna pass this. I was only about 10 weeks pregnant. It was like they were just making me take these tests that early. You usually don't take your gestational diabetes test until around 5 months pregnant. In my case, they wanted me to take it early because of the family history, and because of advanced age, because I was over 35. The nurses were all kind of like, you know, a lot of people fail this 1-hour screening. Try not to stress out about it. Try not to worry too much. You're probably gonna pass, you know, no big deal. So I drank lots of water, prepared myself for the test. They tell you to eat, you know, a good amount of carbs, like carb load, for about 3 days before you go to take that 3-hour screening, just so that your body doesn't go into straight sugar shock when you drink all of that glucose, because it is a lot. It's pretty nasty. I prepared, you know, did what they told me to, went in, tried to think positively, all of this, and I failed that test. Now I did pass the first check that they do when you come in, which was your fasting range, and I think they wanted that to be below, I can't remember if it was below 90 or 95. They've changed the guidelines over the years, but whatever it was, I did pass that. So then I drank the drink, and then my blood sugar just shot way up, and so I failed the next one at 1 hour, and I failed the one at 2 hours, and then at 3 hours it did go back down, and I passed that one. And to be diagnosed with gestational diabetes, you fail basically any 2 out of those, and they diagnose you. So I did fail 2. So anyway, that time around, that was really scary for me. It was my first pregnancy that had gone that far. I'd been pregnant before. It was my second pregnancy, but we did miscarry with our first pregnancy, which my husband and I will probably do a video on that later at some point. With that pregnancy, especially after losing my first pregnancy, I was so terrified and just wanted to make sure I was doing everything correctly, and also so terrified of getting type 2 diabetes later that I, you know, really followed a strict diet, strict exercise, just got right on top of that. They sent me to a specialist, which I already had to see because I was considered geriatric pregnancy because I was over 35. And he was the most fabulous doctor, just phenomenal in patient care and information, and really helping me to manage my diabetes and stay on top of it. I had a really, really good experience there, and really grateful for that. I had to prick myself 4 times a day, check my blood glucose levels in the morning when I woke up, and an hour after breakfast, an hour after lunch, an hour after dinner. And the way, you know, people have to check their blood sugar levels varies. Some people's doctors tell them to do 2 hours after. Blair's in the background playing. Some people's doctors tell them to do it every 2 hours, some every hour. There's like variation, like do you start the timer between when you first start eating or when you stop eating, etc., etc. So for me, I started the timer after I stopped eating, but then did it for an hour later. So it would probably, a lot of people tell you to measure from when you first start eating. So mine, you know, it probably makes it fall between an hour and a half to 2 hours that way. So that's probably why they have me do it that way. Anyway, I was able to probably within a week get my blood sugars under control. I was able to keep them in range the whole time. I only had maybe 5 numbers the entire pregnancy that went over the range that they wanted, and never anything as elevated as I have experienced since then. But for me, wanting to stay perfectly in range, and you know, for everything to be, you know, even those high numbers made me really scared and freaked out. So if you're going through this and you've been diagnosed with gestational diabetes, I feel you on that. You know, they tell you this is something that can hurt your baby, and you know, a baby that you've never gotten to meet face to face, but that you already love so much, and that you just want to do anything and everything in your power to protect them from anything harmful. And then they tell you, hey, by the way, you've got this going on and it can hurt your baby. It's really scary. You just want to do everything that you can that's in your power to get it under control, to protect your baby. It's like one of the first maternal things, you know, it feels like that you can do for your child. So at least that's how it felt for me. So anyway, fast forward, that was a struggle going through the pregnancy, especially getting diagnosed at 10 weeks. It felt like my entire pregnancy, I, you know, didn't eat any simple carbohydrates, no sugar. I didn't snack on things, no candy, no cake, no any cravings, like craving ice cream, no, not even diet ice cream. I lived off of chicken, eggs, and bacon in the mornings for breakfast. Sometimes breakfast sausage, chicken, lots of steak, and little teeny tiny baked potatoes I could have with the steak at night, fully loaded, which was great, and vegetables, and not a lot of fresh fruit because that would shoot my numbers way up there. Although I did take whole food vitamins that, you know, basically have crushed pineapple and stuff like that in them, so I was getting nutrients, but not like I craved fresh fruit so bad, couldn't have it. What else did I eat? Tons and tons of sugar-free Jello, which some people I know, it's probably like sugar-free stuff is not healthy for you while you're pregnant, but to each their own, and that's what I ate to cope during my pregnancy, and my daughter seems fine, so hopefully it didn't harm her. Lots of cheese, cottage cheese, and Greek yogurt, which was like a pretty good treat. They've got some really good flavors of Greek yogurt, so that always kind of felt like a dessert or something to me. But I had to, you know, just really watch my carb counts. And you don't want to cut carbs all the way out because that's not healthy for your baby either. So you have to find that happy medium. And for me, I was able to find that pretty easily by just eating the same exact things every day during that pregnancy. I was able to stay off of medication. I did a lot of walking and exercising during that pregnancy to stay off of medication. So now the beginning of that pregnancy, I was so terrified from losing our first pregnancy, from miscarrying, that I kind of just, as soon as I found out I was pregnant with Blair, I just was so happy and then so scared that any minute the other shoe was gonna drop and that I was gonna miscarry her also. And I just felt like my body was gonna break or something if I exerted myself or if I moved the wrong way. So to be perfectly honest, I spent, you know, until I got diagnosed with the gestational diabetes, I spent most of the time just kind of like on the couch or laying in bed, just like still. Okay, so I got cut off. My battery went dead. This is my first sit down video. I need to reiterate that again. With my second pregnancy that was completed, my second pregnancy, diagnosed with gestational diabetes, got it under control without having to get on medication, eating the same foods every day, really following my diet and exercise routine, made it through. As soon as I had Blair, within hours after eating, my blood sugar levels drastically dropped. That's even after I had a C-section with her, I was saying earlier, but then the camera went dead. She was breached the whole time of my pregnancy, so I had to have a C-section. So they had never, like, her weight was never an issue when she was in utero. They were never concerned about that. And I had her, she weighed 7 pounds 6 ounces, which is pretty much what I weighed when I was born as a baby. And then she lost weight, and if anything, we've had a problem keeping weight on her. So there's no sign so far that she's gonna have those weight issues that oftentimes happen to children whose mothers had gestational diabetes while they were pregnant with them. Anyhow, it's kind of funny, I guess, when they were hooking up my IVs and stuff, my saline solutions. Before I went in for my C-section, they gave me saline that had glucose added after I'd been so strict and so careful and not you know, eating or drinking anything with sugar in it, no simple carbs. I hadn't even had a slice of bread in months at that point. They gave me this saline solution full of glucose, and it jacked my blood sugars up sky high, freaked me out, scared me. I had managed to stay off insulin. They're like, we've got to give you insulin. Your blood sugar is just, you know, astronomically high. And I'm like, that has glucose in it. Like, what are you doing? And so they, you know, took me off of that and put me on the plain one, but they had to inject me with insulin right before my C-section and right after, from them giving me that saline with glucose added. So the next time around that I had gestational diabetes, I made sure to let them know when I was giving birth to give me the plain saline, please. Anyhow, within hours of having her, my blood sugar levels had gone down, and, you know, within a week tops, I mean, they were so low you would think that I'd never ever had gestational diabetes. And at 6 weeks they tested me. It was a 2-hour a 2-hour oral glucose challenge test with 75 milligrams of glucose. And for that test, you know, you do have to fast, and they take your fasting number, and then you drink the solution. They give you 5 minutes to drink it. They take your blood sugar an hour later, record that number, and then they take it again 2 hours later, record that number. And it's really that well, your fasting number affects whether you're diagnosed with diabetes 2. Anything I think above 126, they diagnose you as diabetic type 2. That's after. The numbers are different while you're pregnant than they are after. And anything at the 2-hour mark after drinking the solution would be considered pre-diabetic, like 140 to 180. And then 180 to 200 is kind of this gray area that some health professionals think should also be diagnosed as type 2 diabetes. But for now, it's pretty much anything over 200 after that 2-hour mark that diagnose you as type 2 diabetes. And that 140 to 180 range is pre-diabetes. So anyway, I managed to make it through that first bout of gestational diabetes unscathed and passed that test, and it was a great relief. And then I really tried to just keep watching what I was eating and doing, because I, you know, was kind of scared type 2 diabetes could sneak up on me at any time. But I did start enjoying sweets again, and carbs, and even drinking beer, or eating ice cream, potato chips, things that I couldn't have at all while I was pregnant. Of course, you can't have beer while you're pregnant, but, you know, fruit, all the good stuff I've been missing. Pizza, pizza. I made it through that, and thought I was pretty good to go until we got pregnant again. So anyway, I'll talk about the next pregnancy in a later video, and because this is long and I'm just ranting on and on, long-winded. Like I said, this is my first sit-down video, just getting started on YouTube. So hopefully, if any of you out there are watching this video, you'll cut me a little bit of slack for that. And do me a favor, and if you like this and you're interested in what other videos that I might have to offer on motherhood, lifestyle, parenting in general, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. Give me a like. Please leave comments below. I tried to just give a little quick overview of what I went through getting diagnosed with gestational diabetes the first go around, and there's so much more to it the second time that I was diagnosed. So come back, see me next time for part 2, and I will go into the journey that we've been on since, which did involve insulin. So but anyway, leave comments down below if you have any questions, and maybe I can address those in the next video. Anyway, bye-bye.
Fell down by the river, I was screaming just to hear a voice. Ooh. And in the cold by the riverside, I was asleep into my very soul.